My name is Margaret, and I'm 58 years old. For most of my life, I believed that family meant showing up for each other. I thought it meant celebrating victories together and supporting one another through challenges. But sometimes, life has a way of teaching us that the families we choose can be stronger than the families we're born into. This is the story of how I learned that lesson, and how a simple housewarming party changed everything. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the older of two daughters. My sister Catherine is 4 years younger than me, and from the time we were children, things were different between us, not in the way you might expect. We didn't fight over toys or compete for attention in the usual ways. The difference was more subtle, more insidious. Catherine was always the one who needed help. When we were young, it made sense. She was the baby of the family, and babies need care. But as we grew older, the pattern never changed. She needed help with her homework. She needed money for college expenses. She needed a place to stay when her apartment fell through. She needed a car when hers broke down. And our parents, bless their hearts, always gave her what she needed. I don't want you to think I'm bitter about this. For a long time I wasn't. I understood that Catherine struggled in ways I didn't. She had trouble holding down jobs. Her relationships always seemed to fall apart. Money slipped through her fingers like water. I had my life together, or so everyone thought, so I didn't need the same level of support. I got married at 24 to a man named Richard. He was kind and steady, and we built a good life together. We both worked hard, saved our money, and made smart decisions. We lived modestly in a small 2-bedroom house on the edge of town. Richard worked in manufacturing, and I was a nurse at the local hospital. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and we had dreams. One of those dreams was to own a beautiful home. Not a mansion, but something special. A place with character and warmth, where we could grow old together. We talked about it on quiet Sunday mornings over coffee, planning out the details of our dream home. But life, as it often does, had other plans. Richard died 7 years ago. A heart attack at 53, sudden and cruel. One moment he was laughing at something on television, and the next moment he was gone. Just like that, the life we'd built together and all those dreams we'd shared seemed to vanish with him. The grief was overwhelming. There were days when I could barely get out of bed. Days when going to work felt impossible. Days when I wondered if I would ever feel whole again. My parents called regularly during that time, checking on me. Catherine sent a card. My coworkers at the hospital became my support system, bringing me casseroles and sitting with me during my lunch breaks when the sadness felt too heavy to carry alone. Slowly, over months and then years, I began to heal. The sharp pain of loss dulled into a gentle ache. I threw myself into my work, picking up extra shifts. Nursing had always been my calling, but after Richard died, it became my salvation. Every patient I cared for, every family I comforted, helped me remember that life was still worth living. And I kept saving money. It became a tribute to Richard in a way. We'd saved together for our dream home, and even though he was gone, I decided I would make that dream come true. For both of us, it took 5 years of careful saving, of living frugally and making sacrifices. I worked overtime shifts and holidays. I packed my lunch every single day. I drove the same old car Richard and I had bought together, even when it needed constant repairs. Every dollar I could spare went into a special account labeled simply home. Meanwhile, Catherine's struggles continued. She went through 3 jobs in those 5 years. She had a brief marriage that ended badly, leaving her with debt. She moved back in with our parents twice, and every time she hit a rough patch, our parents were there to catch her, financially and emotionally. I helped too, when I could. I gave her money for rent once when she was short. I helped her move her belongings when her marriage fell apart. I listened to her cry on the phone about her latest job loss. That's what family does, right? But I kept my own dreams quiet. I didn't talk about my savings account or my house hunting. It felt too personal, too connected to Richard's memory. And perhaps deep down, I knew that if my family knew I had money saved, they would find reasons why Catherine needed it more than I needed my dream. 2 years ago, everything changed. I found the property. It was a mountain estate about an hour outside of town. Not a mansion, but a beautiful home with character and charm, set on several acres with breathtaking views. The moment I drove up the winding road and saw it for the first time, I felt Richard's presence. I could almost hear him saying, "This is it, Maggie. This is the one." The price was high, much higher than I'd originally planned to spend, $4.5 million. It sounds extravagant, I know, but the property was special. The house had good bones but needed work. The land had potential. And somehow, over those 5 years of relentless saving and careful investing, I had enough. I made an offer that same week. The process of buying the house took months. There were inspections and negotiations, paperwork and more paperwork. I kept it to myself during that time. I didn't tell my parents or Catherine. I didn't even tell most of my friends. It felt fragile, like speaking about it might make it disappear. When the sale finally went through, I was 56 years old, and I owned a mountain estate. I had done it. Richard and I had done it in a way. Our years of saving and sacrifice had led to this moment. I spent the next year and a half renovating. I hired contractors for the big jobs but did much of the work myself. I painted every room. I refinished the hardwood floors. I planted gardens and fixed the fence. Every nail I hammered, every wall I painted was an act of love. Love for Richard, love for the life we'd planned, and love for the future I was building. Finally, just a few months ago, the house was ready. It was perfect. Every room reflected the vision Richard and I had shared during those Sunday morning conversations. I could finally invite people to see what I'd built. I decided to throw a housewarming party. I made a guest list of the people who mattered most to me. My parents, of course, were at the top. Despite everything, they were still my mom and dad, and I wanted them to see what I'd accomplished. I invited Catherine, too, and I invited my closest friends, the co-workers who had supported me through Richard's death and the lonely years that followed. I spent weeks planning the party. I wanted it to be perfect. I ordered catering from a nice restaurant in town. I bought fresh flowers for every room. I made sure the guest rooms were ready in case anyone wanted to stay overnight. I even bought a new dress for the occasion. 3 weeks before the party, I called my parents to confirm they were coming. My mother answered the phone. "Hi, Mom, it's Margaret. I just wanted to make sure you and Dad have the date marked for the housewarming. It's 3 weeks from Saturday." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Oh, honey, about that. We need to talk to you about something." My stomach dropped. I knew that tone. "What is it, Mom?" "Well, Our sister is having a really hard time right now. She lost her job last month, and she's struggling to afford groceries. Dad and I have been helping her out, but money is tight for us too with Dad's medical bills." I closed my eyes. Here it comes, I thought. "I'm sorry to hear that, Mom. That must be stressful for all of you." "It is, sweetheart. And the thing is, we were hoping maybe you could help Catherine out a little bit. Just enough to get her through the next few months until she finds another job." "How much does she need?" "Well, she's behind on her rent too, not just groceries. Probably around $3,000 would get her caught up and give her a cushion." $3,000. Not an insignificant amount, but not impossible either. I thought about it for a moment. I thought about all the times I'd helped Catherine before. I thought about the dream house that I'd finally achieved. I thought about the housewarming party I'd spent weeks planning. "Mom, I can't give her $3,000 right now. I've put everything into this house. But I can send her $500 for groceries this week, and maybe we can figure out a plan for the rest." Another pause. "Margaret, you just bought a $4.5 million house. Surely you can afford to help your sister." And there it was. The judgment, the assumption, the implication that because I had achieved something, I owed it to Catherine. "Mom, the house took every penny I saved for 7 years. I'm not wealthy. I just made this one dream happen. But Catherine needs help now, Margaret. She's your sister. And this party's important to me, Mom. I want you and Dad there. I want to share this accomplishment with you." I heard muffled voices in the background. My father had joined the conversation. Then my mother came back on the line. "Margaret, your father and I have talked about it, and we've decided we can't come to your housewarming. It wouldn't feel right to celebrate your expensive house when your sister can't afford to eat. We're going to use the money we would have spent on gas and a gift to buy Catherine groceries instead." I felt like I'd been slapped. "You're not coming to my housewarming because Catherine needs groceries? Don't be dramatic, Margaret. You have to understand our position. Your sister needs us right now. And I don't. You have everything you need, sweetheart. You have a beautiful home and a good job. Catherine has nothing." I wanted to scream. I wanted to list all the ways I'd struggled, all the lonely nights after Richard died, all the extra shifts I'd worked, all the sacrifices I'd made. I wanted to remind them that I'd built this life from grief and determination. But I knew it wouldn't matter. "Fine, Mom. If that's your choice, I understand. Don't be upset, honey. We'll come visit another time." I hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in my beautiful new kitchen, the one I'd spent months designing, and I cried. Not gentle tears, but big gasping sobs. All the grief I'd been holding, all the loneliness, all the frustration of always being the strong one came pouring out. When I finally composed myself, I called my best friend Patricia. Patricia and I have worked together at the hospital for 15 years. She knows me better than almost anyone. They're not coming, I told her. What? Why not? I explained the whole situation. Patricia listened without interrupting, which is one of the many reasons I love her. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Margaret, I'm so sorry. That's incredibly hurtful. Am I being selfish? Should I just give Catherine the money? Absolutely not. You've worked hard for this. You deserve to celebrate it. And frankly, your parents' decision says more about them than it does about you, I feel. Elle's so stupid for caring this much. It's just a party. It's not just a party and you know it. It's validation. It's recognition. It's your family seeing you and celebrating you for once instead of focusing all their energy on Catherine. She was right, of course. That's exactly what it was. What should I do? I asked. Throw the party anyway. Celebrate with the people who actually show up for you. And Margaret, don't send Catherine that $500. She's an adult. She can figure it out. I knew Patricia was right, but the guilt gnawed at me anyway. That's what a lifetime of being the responsible one does to you. It makes you feel guilty for having boundaries. The 3 weeks before the party crawled by. I threw myself into final preparations, trying not to think about the empty chairs where my parents should have been sitting. I texted Catherine once to let her know about the party. Even though I knew she wouldn't come if our parents weren't coming, she responded with a brief message. Sorry, can't make it. Things are really tough right now. No congratulations, no acknowledgement of what I'd achieved. Just another reminder that her problems were always more important than my accomplishments. The day of the party arrived. It was a beautiful late summer afternoon, warm with a gentle breeze. The caterers arrived early to set up. Patricia came even earlier to help me with last-minute details. How are you holding up? She asked as we arranged flowers in the main living room. I'm okay, trying to focus on the positive. The people who are coming are the ones who matter anyway, right? Exactly right. The guests started arriving around 2 in the afternoon. My coworkers from the hospital came first, exclaiming over the house and the views. My neighbor from my old house came, bringing a beautiful wreath for the front door. Patricia's husband came with their adult daughter. Other friends from over the years trickled in. Everyone was so genuinely happy for me. They hugged me and told me how proud they were. They admired the work I'd done and marveled at the views from the back deck. For a few hours, surrounded by people who truly cared about me, I forgot about my parents' absence. We were all outside on the deck, enjoying the catering and the mountain views when Patricia pulled me aside. Margaret, don't look now, but I think there's a news van pulling up your driveway. I looked, of course, because who wouldn't? Sure enough, a van with a local television station logo was making its way up the long driveway. My heart started pounding. What on earth? Did you call them? Patricia shook her head. Not me, maybe someone else? The van parked, and out stepped a reporter I recognized from the evening news, along with a cameraman. They approached the house, and I went to meet them, completely confused. Margaret Thompson? The reporter asked, smiling warmly. Yes, that's me. Can I help you? I'm Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7 News. We received a tip about your home and your story, and we'd love to feature it in our local success stories segment. Would you be willing to talk with us? I looked back at Patricia, who shrugged with a smile. I guess so. What exactly did someone tell you? We heard that you're a nurse who saved for years after losing your husband to buy your dream home. We love stories about regular people achieving extraordinary things. Would you mind if we filmed a bit and asked you some questions? My mind was racing. Who could have tipped them off? But Jennifer seemed so genuine, and honestly, part of me wanted my story told. Wanted someone to acknowledge what I'd accomplished. Sure, I said. Let me just tell my guests what's happening. The next hour was surreal. Jennifer interviewed me on the back deck with the mountain views behind us. I talked about Richard, about our dreams, about the years of saving and sacrifice. I talked about working extra shifts and living frugally. I got emotional when I described finishing the renovations and feeling like Richard was there with me. The cameraman filmed the house, the property, the views. Jennifer interviewed some of my guests who said kind things about my character and dedication. Patricia cried during her interview, which made me cry all over again. When they finished filming, Jennifer thanked me and said the segment would air on the evening news in a few days. They'd call to let me know exactly when. After they left, the party continued, but the energy had shifted. There was an excitement now, a sense that something significant had happened. My friends kept saying things like, "You're going to be famous and your parents are going to see this on TV." That last comment made my stomach flip. I hadn't thought about that. The party wound down as the sun started to set. My guests left in groups, each person hugging me and thanking me for including them. Patricia was the last to leave. "That was quite a day," she said, embracing me at the door. "It really was. Thank you for being here, for always being here. That's what real family does," she said, squeezing my hand. "And Margaret, whatever happens when that segment airs, remember that you did nothing wrong. You built something beautiful, and you deserve to be celebrated for it." After everyone left, I walked through the house, picking up stray napkins and glasses. The caterers had cleaned most everything, but I needed something to do with my hands. I kept thinking about the news segment, wondering if I'd made a mistake agreeing to it. 3 days later, Jennifer called to tell me the segment would air that evening at 6 o'clock. I almost didn't watch it. I sat on my couch, remote in hand, finger hovering over the power button. But curiosity won out. The segment was longer than I expected, nearly 5 minutes. They'd edited it beautifully, showing the house and grounds, clips of me talking about Richard and our dreams, shots of the party with my friends. Jennifer's narration was touching, calling it a story of love, loss, and perseverance. As the segment ended, my phone started ringing. And it didn't stop. The first call was from Patricia. "Margaret, that was beautiful. You looked wonderful, and the house looked amazing." Then other friends started calling. Co-workers, my old neighbor, even people I hadn't talked to in years reached out to say they'd seen the segment and were so proud of me. But the call I was dreading came about an hour after the segment aired. It was my mother. I stared at the phone, watching it ring. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but I knew that would only delay the inevitable. I answered, "Hello, Mom. Margaret Ann Thompson, I just saw you on the news." Her voice was strained, tight with some emotion I couldn't quite place. "Yes, a reporter showed up at the housewarming party. It was unexpected. $4.5 million? You spent $4.5 million on a house?" "Yes, Mom, I told you that. I didn't really believe it was that much." "And you told the whole world about it? About how you saved all that money?" I told my story, yes. About Richard and about working hard to make our dream come true. I heard my father's voice in the background saying something I couldn't make out. "Your father and I feel like fools," my mother said. "Everyone we know saw that segment. They're all calling, asking why we weren't at your party, asking if we've seen your beautiful house. We had to tell them we weren't there. You chose not to be there, Mom, because your sister needed help." How were we? Supposed to know you'd end up on television? And there it was. They weren't upset that they'd missed celebrating with me. They were upset that they looked bad. "Mom, I didn't know about the news segment beforehand. But even if I had, it wouldn't have changed anything. You chose to miss my housewarming. That was your decision. Don't you dare lecture me, young lady. We've always been there for you. Have you?" The question came out before I could stop it. Years of unspoken frustration packed into those 2 words. What is that supposed to mean? It means that you've always been there for Catherine. You've always put her needs first. But when I needed you to just show up, to celebrate something I worked 7 years to achieve, you said no. That's not fair, Margaret, isn't it? When Richard died, where were you? We called you all the time. You called. But Catherine sent a card. 1 card. And you never asked how I was managing. You never offered to come stay with me or help me sort through Richard's things. You assumed I was fine because I always am. You seemed fine. You went back to work after 2 weeks. Because I had to, Mom, because that's what I do. I keep going. But that doesn't mean I didn't need support. It doesn't mean I wasn't drowning. There was silence on the other end of the line. I could hear my mother breathing, could almost see her struggling with what to say. "I don't know what you want from us, Margaret. I wanted you at my party, Mom, that's all. I wanted you to see what I'd built and be proud of me." We are proud of you. Then why weren't you there? More silence. Finally, my father took the phone. Margaret, it's Dad. Your mother is upset, so I'm taking over this conversation. Hi, Dad. We should have been at your party. Your mother and I made a mistake. The admission stunned me. My father is not a man who admits mistakes easily. Thank you for saying that. But you have to understand, Catherine really was in trouble. She needed help, and I understand that, Dad. But there's always going to be some crisis with Catherine. There always has been. At some point you have to ask yourself if you're helping her or enabling her. That's harsh, is it? She's 54 years old, Dad. When is she going to take responsibility for her own life? She's had a harder time than you have, Margaret, has she? Or has she just never had to develop resilience because you've always caught her when she falls? I heard my father sigh, long and heavy. Maybe you're right, he said quietly. Your mother and I have talked about it before. We worry that we've made things harder for her by making things too easy, if that makes sense. It makes perfect sense. But she's our daughter. We can't just stop helping her. I'm not asking you to stop helping her, Dad. I'm asking you to also see me, to also celebrate with me, to make room for both of us in your lives. You're right. You're absolutely right. And I'm sorry we weren't there. Thank you, Dad. That means a lot. Can we come see the house? I'd like to see what you've done. I thought about it for a moment. Part of me wanted to say no, to make them feel the sting of their choice. But that's not who I am. Of course you can come. You're always welcome here. How about next weekend? That works. Come Saturday afternoon, we said our goodbyes, and I hung up feeling emotionally drained but somehow lighter. I'd said things I'd needed to say for years. I'd set a boundary. And my father had actually listened. My mother called back the next day to apologize too, though her apology was more defensive than my father's. She explained again about Catherine's situation, justified their decision, but ultimately said she wished they'd been there. It wasn't perfect, but it was Psalm. Ething. Catherine never called, never texted, never acknowledged the news segment or the house or anything. Her silence spoke volumes. The following Saturday, my parents arrived at 2 p.m. My mother brought a plant, something for the garden. My father carried a wrapped gift. I gave them a tour of the house, showing them each room and explaining the work I'd done. My mother was polite but quiet. My father was more openly impressed. This is incredible, Margaret, he said as we stood on the back deck looking at the mountain views. You and Richard always did have good taste. Thank you, Dad. My mother touched my arm. I really am sorry we weren't here for your party, sweetheart. I've been thinking about it all week and I understand why you're hurt. I appreciate that, Mom. I saw the news segment, she continued. You talked about Richard so beautifully. I could see how much you still love him. I do. I always will. And this house, it's a tribute to him, isn't it? Yes, to him and to us. To the dreams we shared. She hugged me then, and it felt more genuine than any hug she'd given me in years. We spent the afternoon together, drinking coffee and talking. My father opened his gift to reveal a beautiful wooden sign with the house number carved into it. I made it in my workshop, he said. Thought you could hang it by the front door. It's perfect, Dad, thank you. As they were leaving, my mother brought up Catherine. She's struggling a lot, Margaret. Financially and emotionally. I know, Mom. She saw the news segment. I think it was hard for her. I'm sorry to hear that. Maybe you could reach out to her? Invite her to see the house? I thought about it. Thought about all the years of one-sided support. Thought about her silence after my party. Thought about the pattern we'd all fallen into. Mom, I love Catherine. She's my sister. But now, I need her to reach out to me. I need her to make an effort. I'm tired of being the only one who tries. My mother looked like she wanted to argue. But my father put his hand on her shoulder. That's fair, he said. That's completely fair. The weeks after my parents' visit were peaceful. I settled into my new home, making it truly mine. I planted bulbs that would bloom in spring. I set up a small office where I could work on the schedule for the hospital. I hung photos of Richard throughout the house, keeping his memory alive in the space we dreamed of together. My phone continued to ring with calls from friends and acquaintances who'd seen the news segment. Some were genuinely happy for me. Others were clearly just curious about the house or the money. I learned to tell the difference quickly. One evening about a month after the party, I was sitting on my back deck watching the sunset when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but something made me answer it. Hello? Margaret? It's Catherine. I almost dropped the phone. Catherine. Hi, I saw your house on TV, I heard. There was a long pause. It's really beautiful, she said, her voice small. Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't come to your party. Why didn't you? Because Mom and Dad said they weren't going, and I figured if they weren't going, I shouldn't either. But also, honestly, I was jealous. The admission surprised me. Jealous of what? Of everything. Your house, your success, the way you've always had your life together. I know it's stupid. I know you worked hard for everything you have. But it's hard to see you doing so well when I'm such a mess. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. Catherine, I understand feeling jealous. That's human. But you know what's also human? Showing up for people you love even when it's hard, even when it brings up uncomfortable. Feelings. I know. You're right. I should have been there. Yes, you should have. Another long pause. Can I come see it? The house? I thought about my conversation with my mother, about how I'd said Catherine needed to reach out to me, and here she was reaching out. I could say no, could hold on to my hurt and anger, or I could extend grace. Yes, I said, you can come see it. Really? Really. But Catherine, I need you to understand something. I love you, you're my sister, but I can't keep being the only one who makes an effort in this relationship. I can't keep being the strong one while you fall apart. If you come here, I need you to really see me, to really see what I've built and what it means to me. Can you do that? Yes, she said, and I could hear tears in her voice. I can do that. I want to do that. Okay then, come next weekend. Saturday afternoon? Thank you, Margaret. Really. Thank you. Catherine came the following Saturday. She drove up in a car I didn't recognize, probably another borrowed vehicle. She looked older than I remembered, tired and worn down by life. But she smiled when she saw me, a real smile, and hugged me tightly. This place is incredible, she said, looking up at the house. Even better than on TV. I gave her the same tour I'd given our parents. She asked questions about the renovations, admired the decorating choices, and genuinely seemed interested. When we got to the back deck and she saw the view, she started crying. You and Richard dreamed of something like this, didn't you? Yes. For years. He'd be so proud of you, Margaret, thank you. That means a lot. We sat on the deck with glasses of lemonade, and for the first time in years, we really talked. Not about her problems or my solutions, but about our lives. I told her about the loneliness after Richard died, about throwing myself into work to avoid feeling pain. She told me about her struggles with depression, about feeling like a failure compared to me. I've always felt like I was living in your shadow, she admitted. You were the smart one, the responsible one, the one who did everything right. And I was just Catherine who couldn't keep a job or a relationship. I never meant to make you feel that way. I know you didn't. It's not your fault. It's just how I felt. And instead of trying to fix myself, I just kept letting Mom and Dad rescue me. It became a pattern I couldn't break. You can still break it, Catherine. You're only 54. You have time to build the life you want. I don't know how. Yes, you do. You just have to start. Get a job and keep it. Make a budget and stick to it. Stop relying on Mom and Dad to catch you every time you fall. She nodded, wiping her eyes. You're right. I know you're right. It's just scary. Change always is. But you're stronger than you think you are. We spent the rest of the afternoon together, and when she left, she hugged me again. Thank you for letting me come, she said. And for being honest with me. I needed to hear those things. I love you, Catherine. I want you to be happy and successful. But I can't want it more than you want it. I know. I'm going to try. Really try this time. I didn't know if she would follow through. Years of watching her fall back into old patterns had taught me not to get my hopes up. But for the first time, I saw something in her eyes that I hadn't seen before. Determination. The months that followed brought changes I hadn't expected. Catherine did start trying. She got a job at a grocery store. Nothing glamorous, but steady work. She found a small apartment she could afford on her own. Our parents helped her with the deposit, but made it clear they wouldn't keep bailing her out. She called me once a week, just to talk, not to ask for money or help, but to share how things were going. She told me about struggles at work, about learning to budget, about the small victories like paying all her bills on time. I listened and offered encouragement, but I didn't rescue her. It was hard sometimes, fighting the instinct to solve her problems for her, but I knew it was what she needed. My parents came to visit regularly. My mother and I developed a new kind of relationship, one where she saw me as more than just the daughter who had everything together. My father and I would work on projects around the house together, and he'd tell me stories about his own struggles when he was younger. Patricia and my other friends became regular visitors. We'd have dinners on the deck, watching the sun set over the mountains. I started hosting a monthly book club, and my house filled with laughter and conversation. About 6 months after the news segment aired, I was at work when I got a call from Jennifer, the reporter who'd done the story. "Margaret, hi, it's Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7. Do you have a moment?" "Sure, Jennifer, what can I do for you? I wanted to let you know that your segment was one of our most popular stories of the year. The response was incredible. And we'd love to do a follow-up piece if you're interested. Maybe show how you've settled into the house, talk about what it's meant to you." I thought about it. The first segment had brought unexpected consequences, but ultimately good ones. It had forced conversations that needed to happen. It had celebrated an achievement I was proud of. "I'd be happy to do that," I said. The follow-up segment aired a few weeks later. This time they included footage of my parents visiting, of Catherine talking about how I'd inspired her to turn her life around, of my friends gathered on the deck. Jennifer framed it as a story about family reconciliation and the POW. Of pursuing your dreams. After it aired, I got dozens of messages from people I'd never met. People who'd been inspired by my story. People who'd been through similar struggles with their own families. People who were grieving and found hope in my journey from loss to new beginnings. One message in particular stood out. It was from a woman named Sarah who'd lost her husband 5 years earlier. "Your story gave me permission to keep living," she wrote. "To pursue dreams even after loss. Thank you for showing me that it's possible." I read that message 3 times, crying each time. Richard and I had dreamed of this house as a place for us. But it had become something more. It had become a symbol of resilience and hope, not just for me, but for others too. One evening, about a year after the original news segment, I was sitting on my deck watching the sunset. My phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. "I got promoted to assistant manager today. They said I've been their most reliable employee for the past 6 months. I'm proud of myself, and I wanted you to know." I smiled, tears streaming down my face. I texted back immediately. "I'm so proud of you too. You're doing amazing things. Want to come celebrate this weekend?" "I'd love that. Can I bring someone? I've been seeing someone, and I'd like you to meet him." That made me laugh out loud. Catherine, with a relationship she was confident enough to share. Catherine, who was building a life she was proud of. "Of course, bring him. I'll make dinner." That weekend, Catherine arrived with a kind-looking man named Tom. They weren't overly affectionate, but I could see the way he looked at her, with respect and genuine caring. Over dinner, Catherine told me about her promotion, about her plans to save money for the first time in her life, about feeling like she was finally on the right track. None of this would have happened. "And Ned, if you hadn't been honest with me," she said. "If you hadn't set boundaries and made me face my own patterns. Thank you for that. You did the hard work, Catherine. I just stopped enabling you to avoid it." Tom squeezed her hand. "She talks about you all the time, about how you inspire her." I looked at my little sister, seeing her in a new way. Not as the perpetual problem that needed solving, but as a person who was finding her own strength. As I sit here now, writing this story, it's been almost 2 years since that housewarming party my parents missed. My life has changed in ways I never expected. This house, built on years of sacrifice and grief, has become a gathering place for the family I've built and the family I was born into. My parents visit monthly. My mother has apologized more than once for prioritizing Catherine's immediate needs over celebrating my achievements. We've had hard conversations about patterns and favorites, and while some wounds take time to heal, we're healing. Catherine continues to grow stronger. She's been at her job for over a year now. She and Tom are talking about moving in together. She has savings for the first time in her adult life. She still struggles sometimes, but she calls to talk through problems rather than asking to be rescued. And me? I wake up every morning in the home Richard and I dreamed of, and I feel him here with me. Not in a sad way, but in a comforting one. Every room holds a memory of the plans we made, and every new memory I create here honors the life we shared. I've learned that family is complicated, that love doesn't always look the way we think it should, that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to stop making their life easy and let them develop their own strength. That celebrating yourself isn't selfish, even when others are struggling. I've learned that the families we choose are just as important as the families we're born into. Patricia and my friends from the hospital, they showed up when it mattered. They celebrated with me when my own parents wouldn't. That's family too. Most importantly, I've learned that grief doesn't have to be the end of dreaming, that you can honor someone's memory by continuing to live fully, that it's possible to be both sad about what you've lost and grateful for what you have. This house isn't just a house, it's a testament to love, to perseverance, to the idea that it's never too late to build the life you want. Richard and I built it together in a way, even though he never got to see it. And now I'm filling it with new memories, new laughter, new love. When people ask me if I regret buying such an expensive house, if I regret the years of sacrifice, I tell them no, not for a single moment. This house represents the best parts of who Richard and I were together, and it's helping me become the best version of who I am alone. And when they ask if I regret that my parents missed the housewarming, I tell them no to that too. Because their absence taught me something important. It taught me that I don't need anyone's permission to celebrate my achievements. It taught me that I can extend grace while also holding boundaries. It taught me that real love sometimes means letting people experience the consequences of their choices. The news segment that seemed like such a strange intrusion at the time turned out to be a gift. It forced conversations that needed to happen. It shone a light on dynamics that had been festering in darkness. It gave me a voice to tell my story, and in telling it, I found strength I didn't know I had. Sometimes I stand on my back deck at sunset, wine glass in hand, and talk to Richard. I tell him about my day, about Catherine's progress, about the latest book club meeting. I tell him that we did it, that the dream we shared came true, and in the quiet of those mountain evenings, I feel his presence, proud and loving, telling me to keep going, keep living, keep dreaming. This is the story of how I learned that you can build a home from heartbreak, how you can turn grief into something beautiful, how you can honor the past while embracing the future, how family isn't always who you're born to, but who shows up when it matters. And this is the story of how a missed housewarming party became the catalyst for healing I didn't know I needed. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, I'd be grateful if you'd take a moment to like this post and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to hear more stories about life, family, and finding your way through difficult times. And please, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear about your own experiences with family, boundaries, and following your dreams. Your story matters too.